one of the things I normally do is when I open up the camera and you see my array of things here, I really want you to be able to see something. So I have this is a smaller painting of the painting that we're going to be doing. I have some of my brushes here and some of my colors. So I wanted you to see this array that we have. So what I wanted to do before we started was to actually work on some darks and lights here. And if you have your plan in front of you, where we're going to be putting our darks. And the first thing I wanted to do was to have the darks really drift across here. I'm going to take my pen and show you where I would put in my darks if we were making a value study. We're bringing the darks behind here. And this is to remind us that this area of the painting is going to stay white. We also are bringing a little bit of dark behind the edge of the boat. And the other thing that's going to wrap around our central idea here that we have is a dark shadow. And that's really going to be important also in our painting. So I'm just using a Sharpie pen. Do you see how suddenly this starts to pop as we put some darks in and actually show up the area here? We're going to bring in also dark behind here. This is just my plan. One of the things I like to do when I make a kind of a composition like this and I have a basic line sketch is to make a couple copies of it. And then I can try some different things as far as value and color if I want to on that little piece of paper. And it actually gets me set for my painting. Okay, so we've surrounded our boat here and we really have the darks, mediums, and then we have our light of our boat. We're going to connect some of that with some darks behind. So there's going to be dark that's going to go into this area here. And there's going to be a little bit of a mid value that's going to go into here. So if you want to sketch along with me, you're welcome to do that or just watch. And I'll post this afterwards in Cluster. The windows also are going to go a little bit darker. And maybe to connect those two things, we're going to have a shadow, which would lead us from here to here to here to here on the boat. Do you see how the dark lead us around the painting and actually let us kind of travel over to our area, which is important, which is Our Lady walking on the bridge. So I have suggested that there's going to be dark in these other windows. And this is a great exercise for you when you do any painting. You can do your line sketch. And I'm going to put my darks in here. And maybe we'll have a little bit more dark up here. You can do your line sketch, but then put in a little bit of your values to show you where you're actually going to lead the eye in the painting. We have another, maybe just a little dark here. We don't want to treat all the windows the same. And maybe we're going to have a little bit of shadow underneath the roof line here. Because this is morning light in Venice. This is one of my favorite areas to paint in. It's in an area called Santa Ana, and it is a wonderful area. My figure is going to go dark as well, and it's going to go dark, medium to dark in terms of color, so that's going to pop out. And this lady uh, has a shopping cart that and we probably even want to make this darker here. Now, one of the things you probably noticed in the painting is that in a painting like this, one of the things you could do is there are a couple ways you could paint it. You could paint this as a wraparound and make this dark, and then this would be light behind. But what I've actually done in this plein air piece is I've kept this fairly light, this area light, darks down here to be the story. So that's really what we want to keep in mind. Color is very varietal. I'll show you how to pull the colors in, but we're keeping everything fairly light. Now, there's a little trick that I want to show you just before we get started painting, where we're going to make this little area down here, just a little, it's kind of a little abutment in the canal in Venice. We're going to make this fairly dark. You're probably going, well, why are we going to do that? Because this area is going to be very light, and I want to show up that corner and allow our eye to know that this is a lighter area where I'm actually sitting by the canal. These areas behind, I'm going to put in just a tiny bit of value, which will be a light to mid-tone light, and that's going to wrap around here. But when I get over here, this is going to be light. Now, you might ask in the painting, how am I going to have two light areas, one next to the other? Well, that's easy to fix. This area of the canal is going to go a little darker to allow me to have a. Do you see how the whole image is starting to pop now? It's really starting to look interesting. Last thing we're going to do, because we've wrapped around the boat, is we're going to make sure that this is a nice dark right here. It's going to be a blue. And that's going to allow our boat to really shine. Might take another pen here. See how this kind of really pops that out. And it still allows our area at the top to stay white. So this is really our whole focal plane, our focus area here. And this gives you an idea then of how we're going to proceed with the painting. Okay, we're all ready. Let's start painting. And I'm going to take working on a pad, I'm going to take a small, I have like just a knife here. I'm going to put it underneath my pad so that, and you can do this in your studio too, where your paper is slightly angled, not incredibly, just angled just a little bit, so you don't have your painting completely flat on the table. That would be a great idea. Okay, and I want to go over my brushes with you really quickly. You were probably wondering when we signed up when you signed up for everything, what these brushes were and how they'd work. We have the flat, we have a large wash, we have a smaller wash. This one points very well. And then I said to have a synthetic, here I have a 14, and I think this is a 10. I think I told you guys the would be the one. And then you want some detail brushes. So I'm going to actually take my soft brush, which is a squirrel hair brush, and I'm going to mix up 2 pots of paint here. I'm going to take New Gamboge, and I'm going to make a nice little pot of New Gamboge here. Now I'm also going to add a little bit of my cool yellow. So I'm going to kind of push that down a little bit. I want enough paint here that I've got my nice yellow. So that's New Gamboge and either a cad yellow light or medium. And I'm going to tip into my burnt sienna and just take that down a little bit, just a little bit. Now I've got a nice pot of yellow. That's my sunshine. Okay. And we're going to do a little pot next to that, which is our shadow. And so I'm going to start with this one, cobalt blue. Or cerulean. You could have either one. So I've got cobalt blue here. And I'm going to tip into my um, cool red. Now that could be alizarin crimson. It could be carmine. And we're kind of making a lavender here. Okay, what have we just done? We've done something really spectacular here. We have made light and shadow. So when you start thinking about your paintings in general, when you go forward, this is one of the things that you want to think about in your painting. to create that idea of light and shadow in any work, you need a cool pot and a warm pot of color. We're going to make one more color here, and we're going to make the color of a Venetian canal. And that would be cerulean. And then we're going to add a little bit of iridium. Okay, so we've got kind of a murky green. We're going to make it even murkier by adding a tiny bit of burnt sienna. There you go. And there's our Venice Canal. We'll wait to make another pot, and I'm going to make a little pot over here of an extreme dark, but that'll be later when we get into our details. So let's get started. We're going to start on dry paper, and we are first going to be painting into the area up here. So let's go into our pot of warm color, and we're painting on dry paper. Ready to go? Nicely loaded brush. Load your brush up. Okay, now trick is to keep that brush on the paper as long as possible. We're going to go here. We're going to go around our windows. And we can add a little yellow ochre here if we like. Go that. Go around here. Load your brush again. We're going to go back and get into our little pot of color here, which is our yellow with a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of yellow ochre. We can make it a little bit darker if we want. And we're going to go over here and around. And this is in the beginning of this painting, this is going to look slightly messy, but don't worry about it because what you're doing is laying the groundwork for the other colors that are going to be floated in here. And usually in a painting, also for those of you who are avid watercolorists, we usually go in and pop the sky in there. Well, the sky is going to come in later because in plein air, I actually uh, worked the sky a little bit later, and it does not have to go in as a wash. We're going to keep, this is still fairly wet now. So now we're going to float some color in. So we're going to take some yellow ochre, or if you have raw sienna, you're going to float that color in there. Just put it on your brush. Don't put more water on your brush. Go right into your color and bring that down. Now you're going to have a fade of color here, which is very nice. You can take a little bit of that color, you can put it under your window here, right there. Now your colors are starting to blend. More yellow ochre we can put over here. So you've got this nice wet base now for everything, and all your edges are still very wet. We can do one more thing if you want. Just tip your brush into the burnt sienna and just take one little line there, very soft, and just let it bleed. Try to resist the urge to go back in and fix it. Just let it happen. And if you want to pull your uh, paper up a little bit and let it run down ever so slightly, you can. Okay, we're going to take some of that yellow, and we're going to go right around our boat. We're going to keep going down here, and we're going to just tip around the edge of the boat and then amazingly go right down into the water. keeping your brush on the paper as long as possible. This is a light wash that's going to go underneath here. Just a really light wash. Now, one of the things you can do if you feel that you have hard edges here is rinse, tamp your brush, and then lightly go over that edge with just a little bit of water, not too much. You don't want to get a cauliflower or a background there. And also here, we can just soften that edge ever so slightly. We're just softening that edge. And we can soften the edge there and soften the edge here. But the edge we're keeping that's sharp is right around the boat. Okay. This edge is still damp, and we're going to change color ever so slightly. We're going to tip into our golden mix that's here, and actually a little bit more yellow ochre. And we're going to keep going over to the left here. Now you also can go over your figure, no problem. And because color in this area of Venice is reflected in a small space, you're going to take some of that yellow and actually with one brush stroke, if you can, or a few brush strokes, go over this bridge. Also, again, avoiding the top part of the boat and keeping that area here white. I think I went a little bit over on that. Don't worry if you go over slightly, just tamp that out and you have a continuous sort of look. Okay, you still have a very wet area here. And I'm going to take some cerulean blue and just lightly, actually I'm going to mix a little bit of that right here and just go into my area here to dull this down so slightly. We're just dulling that down. We're going to let some of that blue go over here. Use a little spray bottle on this. It's drying up underneath my light, just ever so slightly. I took a workshop this last year with the painter Joseph Zbukvich, and he said that a little bit of water on your painting is what they call the kiss of life, which I think is kind of interesting. So you keep the colors alive and they start to kind of mist and moisten and move, still move on the paper. So we're going to take, after we did a little cerulean, we're going to take a little bit of burnt sienna and just put a little bit in here, maybe just touch it in with the tip of your brush, slight bit. And we still are a little bit wet up here. We don't want to go too dark. We just want to go and have this kind of tip in there just ever so slightly. Now, this area is still damp down here, and if it's not damp for you, give it a little squirt, little kiss of life. And what's amazing about this is we are to take a bit of our blue purple, which is our cobalt, cerulean, and a little bit of our warm red, and up that underneath the boat right over the yellow. And right up against the bottom of the boat. So we're putting our shadow in actually amazingly first. Bring this over. And we can bring in some blue under here. The boat is blue, so it's going to reflect down into the water. And this is my pot of paint here, which is my cobalt blue and my cool my cool red. Okay. Oh, that's looking good. Okay. Now what I wanted to do is I wanted to move down into here. So I'm going to take my spray bottle. We're going to spritz this area without spritzing the door. So I'm going to put my paper over this, just slightly let that move. Okay. So we are pretty good right now. We are good with the background. The houses in Santa Ana in this part of Venice are usually this golden color. There's wonderful color. Now we're going to take and actually wrap around this area here. So we're doing, as I said, we're doing our sky last. We're going to float color into this area here. We're going to take a cerulean blue and a little bit of burnt sienna with enough water to get that kind of wet and a little bit bluer. And we're going to pull those colors into here. Brush strokes down, brush stroke, brush stroke. Minimal brush strokes if you can, largest brush you can have. And now we're going to pull some of this down. The edge is a little bit wobbly because it's the edge of the wall, the retaining wall for the overhang. This is a little bit of a gray that's made with the cerulean blue and the burnt sienna. Didn't make enough of that. Should be on the side. A little bit more water. And then that's going to go down in here and all the way across. Flat brush, flat brush, flat brush. Pull that line. Aha. We got our. All right. Now here's a fun part. Okay. It's basic. It's really kind of a gray green, which is the color of what we have going on in the canal. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take both those colors, the burnt sienna and the cerulean, and we're going to put it in the direction of the lines that we want to imagine for this overhang. So we're going to take a little bit of cerulean blue and we're going to tip it. We're going to tip it first in cerulean blue and then tip it into our burnt sienna. We're going to pull some color across here up so that you see you're sitting under an overhang, and it can be on the cerulean blue side. Okay. And then we're going to pull that color across down here, tipping the cerulean, tipping the burnt sienna, tipping the cerulean, tipping the burnt sienna down here. One of the things you learn in watercolor is that if you are putting your brush into water the whole time and then putting it back onto your paper, you will get blooms and you will get cauliflower in your painting. But if you take paint that's thicker than what the paint is on here, you're going to have nice saturation and um, be able to put that paint in with no problem. See, that paint goes right on, and I can pull this across. These are just nice strokes here with full, nothing will bloom. Now you're wondering why we have a lot here. We're going to stop here and let this go lighter down at the bottom. This is going to go lighter. A little bit of dark here. Okay. Okay. Now here's something we're going to do. So I've used this brush for the whole time. If you have a brush with a sharp end, we're going to do something where we're going to both lift and make incisions in the paper. So we're going to scratch the paper going this way, which removes the color. And that gives me the direction of the lines at the top of the overhang. Here we're going to go across. Look at that. And we're going to go across. We're moving paint. And then here down below. And then here down below. And at the corner. So we actually now have made the structure and the roofing of this overhang. There you go. If you want to, the second trick you can do besides scratching in is you can lift some color. So the brush I'm going to use for that is that square brush. And we're going to go here and right underneath where I scratched, I'm going to keep my brush. My brush is going to be a little bit damp. I forgot to wet it. So my brush is damp. I'm going to wring out the color. And then I'm going to lift a little bit of color off. See how pretty that is? And that gives you a variety within the area here. You can also put just a couple little lines in here if you want. Okay. Now we've got our surround. How's everybody doing? I hope I'm not fast for you. Everything's working along here. Um, Now I think what we're going to do, because this is semi-damp, should be still damp. My paper's a little buckled, but not too wet. I'm going to bring in some of my color behind here. So now this still looks a little messy, but we're going to bring some color around here. And we're going to go into our pot that was our um, Venice Canal color. And that was a little bit of cerulean, cobalt, peridian, and a little bit of burnt sienna to knock that. Ooh, I did too much burnt sienna. We want it to go greenish. There we go. And a little bit of viridian. That's a nice color. So we're going to go in here behind the boat. This is still a wet edge, so try to avoid it ever so slightly. We're going to go behind here. And we're going to bring some of that color across just a little bit. There's still color underneath here, so that's a good thing. And we're going to come to the other side here. And we're going to let this get lighter over here. And we can skip over some of this yellow here. We don't want to cover that. We're going to bring that color right down here to the bottom. And we're going to make it a little darker by dipping into our cerulean, a little bit of the burnt sienna, and a little bit of a viridian, and that darker down here. And we could take some more cerulean, viridian, and burnt sienna. And we're going to go right under our boat here. Now, here's the for the for the reflections. We're going to take heavy cerulean, heavy verna, and a little bit of heavy viridian. It's thicker, and we're going to pull some colors down. You guys have that? Or pull those colors down. Okay, let me see what I've got here. Okay. Okay, this is looking pretty good. We're going to spritz it ever so slightly. There we go. And we're going to let it run just a little bit. We want that crinkly effect of the color. The spray bottle friend at this point. Okay. I think things are looking pretty good. All right. Let's spray it just a little bit more. And that's going to let those edges kind of wrinkle and kind of change a little bit. That's nice. Okay. So we're going to put away the this brush a minute. So you're going to get ready to use your synthetic brush. But I'm going to do, now we're going to get into our boat because I want to pull those colors down into the water. So we are going to go directly into our cobalt blue. Now we want a bright blue. So if you have cobalt blue, great. If you have a royal blue, that would be great too. But you're actually going to be putting in the color here of the boat for the reflection. And we're going to go right over the buoys that are here. What do they call those? They are buoys, aren't they? They're the floats that are on the boat. And we're going to go right over them because those are going to be put in afterwards with um, with gouache. We're going to do one stroke here and let those happy accidents happen. That would be kind of nice. We're going to do one stroke down here, and it's going to touch your wet area of the water. Don't worry if it touches this. This is what you want it to do. And then I'm going to take a little bit of tip right into my cool red, and we're going to go right at the bottom of the boat. Right at the bottom of the boat. Now we're going to pull a little bit of that down with the same brush. And we can tip into the cobalt and also tip that down. There you go. And we could bring up a little bit of, these are the top of the pylons, or I'm sorry, the buoys that are here. Now we're looking for a lot of running in the water, which is kind of nice. And we're also going to take that dark color, which is the cobalt blue and your cool red. I'm just going to bring that back just a little bit here, just one little line there, just little extension. Rinse your brush out. Okay, We're going to spritz, and we want it to run. So this is what really blending colors is all about. We're going to have some that are merging and mingling here that are going to show up as reflections.
Tammy, could you say something about the how you chose your shadow colours?
Oh, I what?
Why, how you chose your shadow colours? How
Oh,
did you choose them?
well, we have a um, color here where it's the color of the and then I chose also reflected color. So why I put the yellow underneath here is you want to see that color of the reflected building in the canal. Then you also want to see the boat. So you have two or three things that are reflecting all at the same time, and you want to give that impression that it's cooler in the water. So I chose and cerulean and a little bit of viridian for my canal color. And then I put a little bit of burnt sienna in to knock back that brightness on the blues. So the whole theory of this painting is really light and cool shadows and reflections, but with an underlying yellow in the canal underneath. Now, if things are getting too thick here, or you're having a little bit of too much paint, you can tamp out ever so slightly, lighten this up just a little bit. I'm okay with tamping down. A lot of uh, painters say don't ever use a towel, but I'm okay with that. And you can take out just a little bit of color, just to brighten up a little bit of that area. What we're doing when we're painting is really painting we're not painting the scene as if it were a photograph. We want to paint the scene as if it's a feeling of the place. And that's where your watercolor can really change for you when you start working a lot. You're painting the idea of this area rather than painting the actual facsimile of it. But we are trying to remember against light and the light against darker. So we got here. We've got one more thing we want to do with this brush. We're going to take some of that murky color that we had that was the canal color, and we're going to probably put a little bit more cobalt blue into it. And we're going to just bring that with one swoop, if we can, underneath here and underneath your shadow area, remembering to stay away from the white top of the boat. There you go. Things are starting to come together here. Break that up just a little bit. There we go. You want that crinkly look in the water. And we're going to take a little bit of burnt sienna, just put it right into there, and a little bit of cerulean blue and put it right into there. I never used a lot of cerulean blue until I started painting in Venice because it is a cool blue and there's a lot of warm houses and a lot of cool shadow in the canals. So that's one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting about painting in Venice. We can also take and tip, you've still got a little blue on your brush, go ahead and tip a little bit in that burnt sienna. So it's going to be a little bit murky. And we're going to go and take and do the bridge right here. Again, avoiding the top of the boat. There you go. There you go. Okay. Coming together. Coming together. I know at first you look at this, you go, well, this is just a lot of color in here. Okay. So amazingly now we are going to go in for the sky. So this is dry here and this is fairly here, not excessively dry, but we're going to go in just real quickly and we're going to pop in our sky. Okay, so clean brush, rinse brush, tamp your brush, find a clean spot on your palette. Find a nice clean spot in your palette. This is probably the last time we'll use this wobbly brush, our brush that is very, very wet, holds a lot of water. And we're going to go in, we're going to make a nice sky. So we're going to make a little bit of cobalt blue and a little bit of cerulean. Keep it in a keep it in a clean spot. Don't worry about your water now being a little bit dark. If you omit going down to the bottom of your water jug, you won't stir up a lot of the sediment that falls to the bottom. So just take your water off the top. And we're going to go in now with a little bit of sky, keeping your brush in contact with the paper as long as possible. Got a little hair there. Nice and clean. Go right up to your edge. Usually you do start a painting with a sky in the background. Um, and this is a totally different way of painting. This will be different than all the other paintings I really do this series. Feeling of a plein air painting, but in the studio. So there's no other way really to get this. And we have a little white line there. Okay. So we're going right up and right against our lines here. We can have hit or miss. Doesn't have to be complete there. Okay. And you want to take a Kleenex, maybe something like this, and kind of twirl it just a little bit. Take out a few clouds or just a little bit of atmosphere, a little bit of light. Ah, better. If you have a straight edge, just go over it just a little bit. If you have a dot on here, something that you got onto your painting, don't worry about it. We can turn it into a bird. No problem. That's easy to do. Okay. Well, that looks nice. Okay. We're doing okay. And things are drying up nicely down here. Got a little bit of a fuzz or hair or something on that. Okay. All right. So we are ready now to go over to our other brush. So we're going to this nice watery brush, this super watery brush, and we are going to go over to our either number 14 or number 10 synthetic brush. And the reason we're doing that is I think I mentioned in the beginning, these hold a lot less water. And so there'll be a little bit more control. Now, there are two ways to use the brush. One is where you're brushing down here and you have a pointy end. Both of these work the same. So you're painting like this. What I want you to do in your windows is we're going to be painting sideways. I've always told my students, don't torment your brush. One of the things you want to do in this case is you want to have a little bit of a drag line. Now is where you're going to start putting in some of your more detailed areas, but you don't want them to be finished and finalized like a flat shutter or a flat shape here. So we're going to take a little bit of that blue that we had in the sky, and we're going to load that into our brush here, and we're just going to go sideways. I did color on here. You see how little it actually takes to um, load that brush, but then it doesn't hold. Let's see what we got here. We're going to go sideways. See how that makes it nice and crinkly? We're going to now take that green, which is a combination of viridian with a little bit of burnt sienna. Let me move this over just ever so slightly. There we go. Looks dark on my palette, but it's Viridian with the burnt sienna. And we're going to go sideways with our brush. Tip of the brush. Just sideways. Just sideways. Don't worry about it being even. If you have a smaller brush and you want to accomplish it with that you're welcome to. We're going sideways with this brush. Sideways with the brush. We're going to put some more shutters here. So rather than painting down this way, we're going this direction. And we're going to put a little bit of green, just a little bit of green over here and pull that just slightly. All right. Okay. And we are now going to mix our dark. Okay. You have a pot of green here, and you probably will not be using that anywhere else in your painting. So what we're going to make now is we're making something. We have our pot of warm, we have our pot of cool, we have our pot of canal color, and now we're going to make a super dark. So how do you make a super dark? You make a super dark with dark colors. So we're going to take more Viridian and put into this. And we're going to take our cool red and put into that. We're going to make a nice pot of this. Usually I have a large pot of it on my palette, but this time we're going to make it up from scratch. I thought it'd be fun to do that. So we have a dark Viridian, which is a dark green. Now it can be a Windsor green. It could also be a phthalo green, any of those colors. And you're using which is a cool red, maybe something like alizarin or carmine. Those both work really well. Can be permanent alizarin or regular alizarin. And we have kind of a reddish brown. Now we're going to do one more color. We're going to take ultramarine blue. So how do we make a dark paint? With three dark colors. A lot of times students will ask me, they'll say, or painters will say, I can't make my paintings look dark. And one of the reasons you can't get your paintings too dark is probably because you're not working with a lot of dark pigments. So dark pigments create that dark, nice, wonderful, rich, what we call a watercolor black. That's the color. That's what we want. Something very super dark. Okay. Now we're going to go in for some of our darks here. We're going to go in to this area, which is still a little damp, and we're going to go right into here on this side of the door. And you put a little bit underneath there. I can rinse my brush, tamp my brush, and just fade that ever so slightly there at the bottom. Just fade it out. Okay. And we're going to load our brush again with the dark. And we have two doors here. The lady's going into either door. We don't know if she's going to go into the Sordo
How
Portega, which
dry is
is
your paper, please, Penny?
the what, honey?
How dry is your paper?
My paper now is still damp and it's still this area is very wet. This is drier here. This is a little bit drier, but it still is slightly buckled. And we're going to pull this door down. That's going to go behind my bridge. If you find your paper, depending on where you live, if you find your paper getting super dry, give it in general a kiss of life. Just go ahead. That's all right. We're going to come in with the details later. Give it a little light spritz. Just a little light spritz. One of the things you want to do is keep your paper slightly damp to keep everything moving until the very end. This is now, we wanted this was our wettest here. This now is fairly dry. And we can spritz this ever so slightly. I am getting dry because of the lights. A little bit here. And the spritz does two things. It makes the paper damp and it also moves the color ever so slightly so you don't get super, super. Okay. Now we're going to go into our, let's see what we're going to do here. We've got our darks. Oh, I've got two little dark windows I think would be kind of fun. We're going to do, we have a little window here, but I didn't want to make it with shutters. We're going to go just a little dark here and a little dark there, sideways. And now we're going to take that same dark. I think we'll go over a couple things here. With the tip of the brush, you're going to do just a little bit of lines there, a little bit of line here going up. Now, those of you who are uh, saying, well, there might be perspective here, there is a little bit of perspective, meaning that the lines of this building are going down this way, and the lines on the bottom are coming out here. Now, how do I know? Because I'm sitting right here. And as I've told my students before, you are the center of the universe. Everything is from your point of view. So my point of view was right here where I'm sitting. And then that means that the largest side of the building, or the if it would appear in the painting, would be on this side. And then everything would be going away. I'll show you with my brushes. Everything would be going away at this angle, going away from me. So we're going to take a little of that dark again. We're going to put two little lines here. And we can also do just a little bit of, we can do a little bit of edging just where at that very edge of the roof line. And we can bring that dark down into that little dark area underneath the top of that little bit on the roof. Now we've got to have some fun. Okay. Our next job is to go in to our figure. How's everybody doing with that? We're going to do a figure. And you've already traced out your figure. We're going to move over from our two brushes here. We're going to go to our detail brush. So here's our detail brush. We are going to do this figure. We have one shape here. She's walking away from us. It's the back of a lady. We don't have to do a face. We're just going to do some general color. But I have an easy way to show you how to do figures. And you could put multiple figures in a piece like this. You could all kinds of approaches, and this could be a more expanded painting, but we're going to do one color on the whole figure, and then we're going to pop the colors over top of her. Now, this area right here should be fairly dry right now because we want this to be a sharp edge. So we're going to go in, we're going to wet our brush, tamp our brush, and I'm using my number 6. Here's my number 6 watercolor brush. And I'm going to go into my warm color, but I'm going to take a little bit of my cad red and mix up just a little bit on the corner that's going to be a little bit warmer. So it's going to go slightly orange. Can you guys see that? And we are going to go over our whole figure. So we're going to start at the top, go down to the bottom in one color, and then we're going to put her clothing color on top of that. So we are going to go here, and we're going to go down onto her. So she's looking a little bit orange. She's kind of a russety sort of orange. And her skirt, if you're making a woman, is coming out 2 legs here. And her packages, her cart that she's pulling is just going to be one shape. Going to go right down to the bottom. Right down to the bottom. See, she's right there because we're going to be putting the railing on top of her. Okay, good color. Did a good job here. Okay, so she's going to have a red top. She's all wet now. We're going to go in with no water. We're going to go right into our nice warm red. And we're going to put that right on top of that wet area. Kind of down to where a jumper or sweater would be on her, or jacket. And one of the tricks I do sometimes is, rather than make this line across here straight, try to make it at an angle as if she's moving. And we're going to go tip right into our cobalt blue. She's going to have a cobalt blue skirt. I'm down with thicker paint right on top of here. And we're going to take that cobalt blue, or the dark that you've mixed up here. It's going to be nice and thick. And we're going to go right into her package here that she's, or her cart that she's carrying. Now it can be a dark. We can also tamp into our burnt sienna, get it a little bit warm. She's just going to be a shape up here. And we're also going to go into our burnt sienna and give her a little bit of hair. She has a top knot, I think. There's my lady. There she is on the bridge. And we're going to take the bottom of, we're going to tamp our brush, rinse our brush, tamp our brush, and just let that color kind of merge into the bridge top there. And if you want to, you can take some of that color and just go up and just go up. It's just a little bit of a brownish color that's on your brush now. So it's all going to kind of relate here. These are the, what do you call it? The uprights for the bridge. Got a little heavy on that one. And if I want to take a little color off of this and just put some color over top of here, these are my other uprights. A little bit of sideways brushwork. Okay, there's our figure. Hope we did well on that. Okay, now we're really kind of coming into the home stretch. So we're going to go into our dark now. All right, this is where it gets a little bit more fun. Uh, so we are going to go into our dark, and we're going to mix that up and make sure we have a nice big pot of that. So that was Viridian, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, could be a little bit of a alizarin. You don't want it to be red. You want it to be really very neutral. Can be a little heavier on the ultramarine blue. And the green will neutralize the red. So that'll make it really that kind of dark. Okay. So now we're going to go in and actually do some detailing in here. I'm going to bring in some darks over top of where this blue of the window was. So you're not painting it all out, but you're actually just pulling in some color sideways. So with your brush loaded with a fairly thick amount of your dark, you want to watch me do it before you do it. I'll go over it again. So we'll take the window up here, which is the easiest to do first. We'll go here, and then we're just going to pull down. Okay. I'll do that again down here. We're going to go where our door is still kind of lightish gray, and we're going to go over just straight sideways with the brush. Now this is my detail brush, so I can use the tip of it, and I can also use the side of it. Put a little bit of dark here, and we're going to pull that dark across. Got to pull it across here. We're going to pull it across a little bit here and the top of the window. little bit underneath, and maybe a little bit around this door. Okay, we're going to go over here. We've got one little window here. Might have forgotten one of the windows here. We're going to put a window sideways, just a little brush stroke, and a little tiny brush stroke going this way. So it looks kind of crumbly. And then here we're going to go sideways again. See, let me come in. I'm going to come in really quickly and show you. Let's see if we go a little. Let me come in with my camera. Okay. 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 Does that help you, I think? That helps quite a bit, I think, to see exactly what the crumbly looks like. So when I take my brush and I go sideways, it actually gives you this kind of dragged effect. And let me show you over here while we're in here with the more detail area. There's my lady. See, she's almost but she has no real face or anything. Sideways brush is also here. Sideways brushes are up in here. So it looks very, very crumbly in here. Here, real quickly. You see where this is looking in here, where it looks very crumbly across the side. This is a little, I know it's a little not quite focused, but that's where action is really starting. So we're trying effect of you're seeing it, but you're not quite seeing it perfectly, which is what a watercolor really is about. Let me pull this out all the way. There we go. Okay. So we're going to take that color that we have that is our, and we're going to make it very, very light, extremely light. So it's going to be like, it's almost like a purple gray, very light purple gray. And we're going to go again sideways. We're going to go across the sign here. Now keep really light color that we have. We're going to go around this dark window. We're going to go under this window. We're going to go under that window. That's with our very, very light color. Under here, under here. That's our our grayish color, and under there. We're going to take that same grayish color and we're going to make some shadowing, which is, it's kind of like a purplish bluish. If you want to go into your pot of purple blue here, you can. But I think your color that you made that's thinned out very, very light will work for this as well. So we're going to be going down here, down into this area, which is a shadow between the buildings. So we're going to go here, and then we're going to go all the way down. So I'll show you that again. We're going to go here, and then you're going to drag your brush all the way down. Okay? We've got one area also over here where we're going to put a little bit of dark on this side. So we're going to go dark under here, and then this is not quite as dark. We're going to go right across here and maybe a tiny bit of detail. Ooh, that's a little too much. Right next to that building right there. And we can bring just a little bit down here and blot that. Give it a little thick and thin. Don't want any sharp edges on that. Just a little color in there, little color enhancement. Okay. Okay, we're coming into our details now. Hope everybody's doing okay. We're going to do some of the lines here. We're going to put in a few poles for this boat to be tied up to. So we're going to go ahead and go into our burnt sienna. And we can go into pure burnt sienna. You can add a tiny bit of cobalt blue to it, kind of to change it a little bit, or a little bit of cerulean. And we're going to go from here to there, one direction. We're going to go here, just down. And we're going to do another one here. And it's going to go behind this pole. So, and then down. They're the little pylons that you would have there. Okay. Still with our dark color, and we're going to add a little bit more cobalt blue to that. So cobalt blue and a burnt sienna. Cobalt blue, burnt sienna, that makes a kind of a mid-dark. We're going to go on our bridge over here, and we're going to put in a little bit of detail. Okay. And we're going to take that same color because we want this to be dark underneath here where it's edging here on the bridge. And we're going to go underneath here and just pull that color down. Kind of. If you want to vary it a little, just kind of dot it with a little bit of a tissue, bring that around. You can spritz it ever so lightly. Just let it move a little bit. Okay. And we're going to go into our dark green. We're going to go into our green watercolor. And we're going to make that, we really don't need that anymore. So we can take that and make that even darker. So we're going to go Viridian. We're going to go burnt sienna. And we're a little bit of cobalt blue or cerulean. So that's our dark canal color. Viridian, my burnt sienna, and a little bit of cerulean or cobalt blue. Okay, we've got that nice dark color. It's nice and deep. Okay, we're going to do a little bit more detailing here. We're going to take some of that color and we're going to just pop it in behind the boat here in that wet area and let that mingle. And we're going to bring that right down behind here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and show you that a little bit clearer. Let's go in. Let's go in slightly. Okay. Push this up a little bit. Okay. So we're going to go in right here. See where I've got this mingling? We are going to go right here behind the boat and we're going to go straight across with our brush. We want this to be nice and dark in here. Nice and dark. And we're going to take some of that dark and bring it right under here. And we're going to pull that out ever so slightly. And we're going to do the same thing right over here because we didn't have it quite dark enough and here. Okay, and we're going to go with our brush. Got these little guys. This is the reflection of the boat coming out. You can have a little more cobalt underneath. And we're going to spray that ever so slightly to get it to run down. And I sometimes pull stuff with my fingers. It's probably not the best thing to do, but you can pull down just a little bit. See how that's kind of working under there? On the monitor, it looks fairly dark and looks a little bit black. but it really is a deep dark green. Okay. And we're going to keep that color on our brush and do two things here. I'm going to show you. I have a nice little detail here. We are going to put this dark little box, or it can go a little bit more cobalt blue here. Color I'm mixing is this color right here, cobalt blue, making it a little bluish, more bluish. Okay. And we are going to go right into this little guy here, right here on the edge. And it's just kind of an indiscriminate sort of little shape, and it's going to hold that corner. And we're going to take that. We're also making a little um, kind of tie on here. It's going to be a little guy that's going to give me a little bit of interest there on the edge of the canal. And while that's still wet, rinse your brush, tamp your brush, go into your absolutely bright red and put some bright red on right over that color. So that's going to show up warm on top of that dark shape, and it's going to dry really nicely. And it's going to bring that forward. You guys see how that goes? Down to our details now, and we're going to be working with some detail with some dark, and then the last thing we're going to be doing is putting in white gouache. So I should stop and ask Lois, are there any questions here? People, is this like ducks with feet underwater? Are we going as fast as we can to keep up? Or are we doing okay?
There's one student who's potentially probably a bit behind, but she didn't mind, and because she's going to look at the link later. But
Oh, okay.
difficult to tell. But no, there are a few questions, but I've been asking them, so please do
Okay.
carry
And no buckets overturned in the studios at
on.
home.
Not as I know of. Not as I know of.
Okay. All right. We're all good. We're all good. Okay. Yeah. I get into this and I keep painting this boat. We want this boat to look spectacular. So we are going to uh, take a little bit of our dark red and we're going to put a little bit of that dark red across the top of the boat. That's our dark red. And my boat's probably still a little tiny bit. It's a tiny bit wet right now, just a little bit. And I'm going to just bring the top of the boat here. I move my brush from sideways to tip, and you can get little details. This is kind of nice to put a little detail in here. We can bring a little bit darker underneath the boat here. It's still wet in there. We can pull some color down on there. Okay, and we're going to take, now we've got that dark on our brush, and it can be that murky green to the purple. Now we're really working with indiscriminate colors. Now you've got this little white area at the front of your boat, I hope, and we're going to take that brush and go sideways here to pick that out. And we're also going to bring that a little bit of that color from reflection down into here. And I'm going to spray that again. And I'm going to kind of make it go sideways a bit. There we go. We're also going to bring some color into here, a little bit of the cobalt blue, which is the reflection, a little bit into the water. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Now this is bright white. This is the thing you've kept white in the piece the whole time, which I hope is working for you. And we're going to let these colors kind of just mingle. We're going to just let them do their thing. See, they're starting to drip here. I'm my lavender or really better would be your pot of, let me go out a little bit here, just a little bit. There we go, just slightly. Okay, so this is my green right here. I'm going to lighten that a lot. It's just going to look like a green gray. And now I'm going to go across the top of the white, put a little bit of detail into my harp that's over top of the boat. So I'm just going to go very lightly here, very lightly sideways, just sideways. Just tickle the paper a little bit, not much. You want it to be a little dark area, you can, but a little bit darker at the edge, right here. But you still want this to be super white. See, that's going to give you a little bit of the tarp or rope marks or whatever we've got on there. Okay. Now we want to go into our super dark and do some of our detail. And this is where it gets kind of fun. We're going to put our last thing we're putting in is the railings, and we're going to be putting in some detail here. And I can also show you how to put in some of the clothing lines that are across there. So we're going to go back in and we're going to find our pot of dark, nice pot of dark. And that's going to be the ultramarine blue and the cobalt blue. Could be viridian in there too, and a little bit of our cold red, all dark colors. Okay. And we're going to go a little bit darker here at the front of the boat and a little bit darker here, a little bit darker here, a little bit darker here. We're also going to make a little bit of a tie-in on the top of these floats too. And if you want to, while it's still wet, you can put a little bit of that dark right underneath the bottom of the boat. And we can have a little bit just at the back here, just right at the back. Now, the other thing that'll make this more realistic is we can have a little bit of lines that go down to our boat. That's a little bit of a tie-on. Or we can have ones that kind of just hang down. Gives me a little bit of a shape there. We're going to still take, we're going to go up here to our window and we're going to go across. We're going to make a window shade. We're going to go with the tip of the brush. We're going to go just lightly across. So when I'm painting on location, one of the things I try to do is get the fantasy of the place, get the idea of, kind of the fun of it. This lady has a window shade. These folks that live over here, probably in this next apartment, don't. And she has a window box. So let's put a window box in here. So what we're going to do is go straight across here with a little line in dark. And you're seeing the bottom of this window box too. Okay. We'll move this down ever so slightly. There you go. Now take a little bit of your burnt sienna and just pop that in right over top of that. That's your little pot on the uh, on the window box. Okay. We're going to take and tip into our dark again. We're going to go around this window. I love little details like this. You're almost using your brush like calligraphy. This is where it starts to get fun. And then here underneath and a little bit on top and a little bit on top, a little bit on top. My partner and I painted in this area uh, several years ago, and we painted again here this summer. And a woman came out of her house and said, "I remember you." because we gave her the painting of the front of her house. It framed it and put it into her living room and was telling everybody that the people from California had painted this for her. And this was 2 years later, which I think is really fun. So, you know, plein air like this, when you're working on location, you never know when you're going to make a friend, uh, or somebody will remember you. You just think you go away from the area and it's like, oh, it's just done. This was quite impressive. Okay, so we have this little window box here. We're going to put in a little balcony here. Now this is a little bit longer. Actually, if it doesn't look like a balcony, we can go up to the top just a little bit, make it a little bit darker at the top, make that window a little bit longer. Just extend this ever so slightly. And now we're going to a little bit of a balcony across here, tip of the brush. A little bit downward lines. There's our balcony. Yeah. We're going to leave that for a second. Now we're going to go in here where my lady is and we're going to finish up our bridge. Okay. So what these are the uprights for the bridge on each of the tops of one of these. These are kind of like rounded at the top. We're going to go here and we're going to go right over Our Lady. And there's another one that goes here and right over. This is our dark, dark, whatever our dark, dark is. Should be very much a neutral. I don't think we see my dark right here. I'm going to come out now. Actually, I think it's okay that we're at this level. You can see this a little bit better. We're going to go uprights here. 2 and 2. Now, because this is Venetian, we're going to do a a certain kind of ironwork that is like a chevron. And we're going to go across here. And then we're going to do our uprights. And we're going to leave a little bit of room here. And actually, we've got between these two poles here is a little bit of a change. So we're going to kind of make that just a little curvy thing. And I forgot one thing here. I'm going to take some of my ochre or burnt sienna, which I totally forgot. I forgot to put in another one of the uprights here. I'm working through this painting. Okay, there's my other little pylon. Forgot that one. Because that's going to go right across here. And we're going back into my here. Now this goes behind the pole, behind this pole. So it's going to go straight across to here and straight across to here at the bottom. And we're going to go uprights. Okay. And with that dark that you have, now we're going to be doing a little bit at the top and the bottom of the painting. We're going to be doing I'm going to show you, we're going to go out again. Okay. Let's go out all the way. Okay. Let me pull this down. Okay. We are going to be, now, be brave. You're going to get a brush and you're going to go across. Let me just show you. You're going to be going across here with some lines that are going to activate this area and also look like a clothesline that's going across. So we're going to start here and swoop If you want to wait on this and practice, you certainly can, but you can watch me do it. Hopefully I'll do it okay. So go across. You're holding your brush up. I don't know how many of you play darts. Ever played darts or with a dartboard, but you're holding your brush like a dart, and then you're going across here. We're going to go across one more time. And we have two lines there that kind of activate the top of that. Okay. Now we're going back down into our water. Now this is going to be a little bit interesting. So you're going to make your dark a little bit more blue. You're going to add a little bit of cobalt or a little bit of ultramarine to it. Get it on the bluish side. And actually, let's and we'll also use our green, dark green pot that we have here. So you got your dark here. We're going to go back in and we're going to bring that dark really heavy behind that boat in the front. We want this to be dark, dark. It's almost going to be a kind of a black, and we're going to bring that a little bit across here, just around that tip. And that pop out. We're going to take some of that blue dark and we're going to put it also behind my boat again. And a little bit just at the corner of the back of the boat here. It's not terribly sharp because it's a dark against a dark. Okay. And let's rinse our brush, tamp our brush, and we're going to go into our super dark green that we have here. That was a combination. I'll go over that again. That was ultramarine blue and a little bit of viridian and a little bit of um, a dark red and a little bit of burnt sienna. It's kind of a weird green. A little more viridian in it. It's really green, like a deeper even than the shadows in our shutters. So we're going to go here and we're going to do a little bit of line work in the water. And that line work is going to go like this. You're going to have a little bit of line work here. You're going to have a little bit here. These are just some reflections that are coming down. We're not quite sure what they are. And then where this reflection is here, you're going to take a little bit of dark and just go this direction and drag that with your finger and drag put a little bit of dark right there. Drag it with a tissue or finger. Here at the back, you're going to have a little bit of light that's come out. That's kind of a little bit of reflection. See how that's showing up now? And we've got a little bit here. And we've got, I think it's dark enough under here. Let's make sure this is kind of sharp here. We've got a little bit of sharpness there, a little bit underneath there, a little sharpness there. This you want to be sharp. This is sharp. These guys a little dark here. Okay. And we're going to put a little bit, just a tiny bit of a dark underneath there. That's underneath your sign. And rinse it out, tamp your brush. I'm going to go one thing here that I didn't do before. I'm going to just let this bottom of the window box have a little bit of shadow under it and a little bit underneath here. Okay, so the last things we're going to do, and I told you this in our video, I'm sorry, and when you signed in to our workshop, there were a couple things that I asked you to bring, and one of them was white gouache. If you only have white gouache, that's perfect. And this is the Winsor and Newton permanent white designer's gouache, which I love. And I'm going to be going into my water pot and then into my tube of paint. That's how you want to do it. You don't want to put it out your palette. And you're just going to go ahead and paint across your windows there. These are probably clotheslines. Let that go out the end. Here's another clothesline that probably goes across here. You're just seeing a little bit of that as light. Now, what's interesting is you're going to put white sideways across your sign right here because we're going to put a little name on that at the end. Let that dry. And because these don't show up, I'm going to put a little bit of white on top of these. Little detail. This is where it gets fun. Before it looked like a kind of a little bit wild and messy, but now it's looking a little bit better. And we're going to put a little bit of clothesline here across the top here. That's a little thick, but it's okay. And we're going to put a little bit of white on the top of these little poles that are are holding up the railing here. Make sure your gouache is nice and thick, not soupy, and goes on very heavy. Now, the ones that we're going to do here, we're definitely going to make the buoys. So the white buoy has to be nice and thick, and you're going down here. There's my one white buoy. Second white buoy. Okay. Now here comes the reflections. So we're going to go across here ever so slightly with our white. And then we're going to take either a finger or a damp brush and go down. And I can take actually damp brush is probably better. We're just going to go over top of this really quickly. That's my reflection. And I can have a little bit more reflection here. And if you've lost some white over here, which I actually have, you can put in a little bit of white over here into your water. Don't worry about white gouache. John Singer started, but it's a lot of fun to use. And we're going to bring this right down to the water edge because we had some lines here. And now we're going to take a little bit of our brush and just kind of dance it across here, just ever so slightly. We don't know where these reflections are coming from. They're just kind of little pieces of light that have tripped onto the top of the water. And we are going to go with a little highlight there. You can still, I'm still on camera. Yes, this is all good. Okay. A little bit of light there and a little light on the bridge. Okay. Um, we are doing great here. Okay, we have a couple last things to do. We put a little bit of water reflection there, a little bit here. If you want to use your spray bottle, go ahead. Just right here. Just drag that down. Look at that reflection. It looks so nice. And if you happen to paint in your um, boat, you can put little tiny bits of little bit of white on there. I wouldn't do too much. Um, and you can also do a little bit of lines across the top of your boat over top of that gray if you want to, if you overpainted. Remember, gouache is your friend. You just don't want to overuse it. And I think we're just about done. I'm trying to see if there's something else I needed to do in here. We've got a little bit of highlight on, oh, I know what we forgot. We forgot our highlight on Our Lady. That's our last thing. So I'm going to put the white gouache away and I'm going to be using Jean Brillant. Now you can use either, lady, but I'm going to be using a little bit of Jean Brillant. And the reason I like it is because it's a little bit yellow and it gives the feeling of highlight on a skin, a kind of a yellowy, opaque color. And we're going to go in here and we are going to put a little bit of highlight on the very top of her shoulders and down her arm. And down her side ever so slightly. She's a little bit backlit. You can just touch a little bit there, and we can have a tiny bit of light across the top of the rails if you want. That's just a little bit of icing on the cake. I don't think I did that in my first piece, but here you can put it across here just to have a little bit of the railing look like it's a dark area. You can have a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit across. And if you don't like that white gouache on top of these pylons, these edges of the gate area, nice and thick. And we're also going to take our orange and go back over this guy that's our buoy right here. So it really shines out. And I think we're done for one more thing. One more thing. We're pretty much done with the painting. Okay. So there, this little area here, this little doorway, this is a doorway to a home. This is called a sorto portega. This is means it goes underneath the houses and actually travels through probably to a courtyard. And usually over a sorto portega is a sign that says that. So this is called sorto portega stella. We are going to take a dark color, any of your dark colors, your dark violet or your dark detail color, either one. And we are going to write that in here, if I can. Sorto. I don't think I, or Tego. Now it does not have to, it just can be letters. But the one that's important, the one letters that are important, and let's see if we want to crisp up anything here. I One last thing I can do, I can show you how I would use my opera pink if I was going to put opera pink into this, or I was going to put flowers on the balcony, and I could put flowers up onto this balcony too. I would tip into my opera pink and I'd perhaps put a little bit of flowers in here. That might be a little too much for some of you. Not want to get too precious with this, but it's a lot of fun. And we are done, except for me signing this. And I think I'll sign it in a dark green. Don't want to make it too obvious. That's a little better. Make it kind of into the details. And we are done. There we go. Just getting little details back in here. We are done. I wanted to show you one tiny thing in the painting just before we leave this, and I think this is kind of important. If you see any edges here that seem to be sharp, while the painting is still semi-damp, it's not completely bone dry, it hasn't been overnight, it hasn't settled completely into the paper. You can wiggle a clear water brush on top of this. So let's say you want to blur this edge of the doorway and you don't like that hard little line that you did. You can just take a clean brush and just wiggle it down onto that edge and just put a little bit of water there and it'll merge the color ever so. It's kind of, I don't know if any of you did regular uh, photography with adjustable lenses, but it's the idea of blurring your lens and sharpening your lens, the same idea you would have in your painting. So if there's anything that looks jarring in your painting, you go ahead and just wiggle a clean brush on top of it, and it kind of just moves it ever so slightly and gives you that little bit of fuzz, which you may not have achieved the first time. These guys can be crisp in here. That's okay that these are crisp, but these guys that get a little bit further away, um, even here, I took a little bit of color and just under my lady, just here, kind of where she's moving across the bridge, I just kind of fuzzed it ever so slightly. So you don't really see the bottom of her feet. You can just kind of move that color ever so slightly. Here it can be crisp. It could be all crisp in here. It can be crisp down in there. It should be very crisp in here and very nice. Okay. So that's just the last thing I wanted to say about the painting. That was really it. And I think it turned out okay.